Uh-oh, I don't know shit about Pokemon. Okay, I'm lying a little bit. I had Pokemon Diamond as a kid, got to the very end of the game spamming one move, and then I couldn't beat it, so I stopped playing. I had Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, but I got lost in it, and I had that Pokemon Farm game on the Wii. I don't remember anything about it other than it was a farm. And if the footage in the background's any indication, I know them from Smash. They're given basically a unique assist trophy just for their own series. I have to know them. Everyone has to know them. Except I never really played any of the actual Pokemon games, like besides being a 5-year-old and then a 6-year-old. So yeah, I had no opinion going into the Splatfest at all. So I decided let me order and emulate some of these games people love, starting with Pokemon Leaf Green and then doing Pokemon X. I wanted to see for myself if these games are actually any good or if they're overhyped because of nostalgia. And to borrow 2 moments from later on in this video, but these are games from the 90s, made for a very young audience, for handhelds. And also this part, because it has given me a chromosome for Pokemon. Enough preamble, let's begin with Pokemon Leaf Green. Alright, so yeah, Pokemon Leaf Green, a remake of a 1996 RPG on a handheld, again on a handheld. I remember when these Game Boy Advance games came out, that at my school and in the local magazines, they would be raving about the Pokemon games, and pretty much everybody I knew had a copy of Fire Red. And I'm pretty sure my peak with Pokemon exposure happened there because I was in the target audience. Not because the games fell off, or that they changed too much.
Uh-oh.
But just because I was a kid and they appealed to kids, so all the kids around me had it too. People were talking about how good Fire Red was when I was a kid. So I got Leaf Green, and I came into it with open arms and expectations to see just what it was all about. Keep in mind, this was made for handhelds to be played, like, on the go. And I'm sitting at home with my fancy emulator fast-forwarding the game, which, yes, that is legal if you own the game. You can emulate games, if anybody gets mad in the comments. And I'm kind of glad I did, because, oh my god, there is a lot of unnecessary fluff for a game like this, even of this era. Though I am getting ahead of myself. To introduce a game that needs no introduction is nearly impossible, but I'm going to try here. You play as a Pokemon trainer in a world full of animals, but what if those animals had elemental affinities that affected their design and their attacks? Because yes, these animals can fight each other, with said affinities having a direct correlation with the efficiency of each animal's attacks. Your goal in this mystical world is to capture Pokemon. You're given a Pokédex by Professor Oak, and he wants you to fill it out for him. Due to the variable nature of Pokemon in the world, you'll have to go high and low to actually capture them all for Oak. Some of them appear in forest areas, mountains, caves, oceans, etc. Having different opponents attached to different biomes was a great choice. It gives the player a clear indication of what will be in the area, where to go to get Pokemon of that type, and generally what kind of team comp they'll be needing in the next segment of the game. I appreciate them making the Anomalia consistent with the biome, as having segments of the world with different kinds of animals and environments makes it feel like a real world, and adds to the gameplay experience. Though speaking of the gameplay, there's a pretty big issue with the types and catching all the Pokemon. You gain experience and level up by killing enemies. Okay, nothing weird there. This is your main way of getting Pokemon new abilities. There are some items that you put any ability on any Pokemon, but for the most part you're going to be leveling up to gain abilities. But capturing Pokemon doesn't give you any experience at all. Eventually, you also stumble upon Pokemon who have attacks that just instantly kill pretty much everything in the way. This is because the attacks are already extremely strong, but they also have a synergy with that Pokemon's type. Using a fighting type move on a fighting type Pokemon will make it do even more damage. So when you run into an ability that's extremely strong on an extremely good Pokemon, it kind of becomes a face roll where you're just killing everything with one hit. Every single random Pokemon's dying before they even get a chance to take any damage. And as a result, besides the story reason, it becomes kind of pointless to capture Pokemon. There are some rewards you miss out on getting, like exclusive Pokemon by trading with NPCs, which I'll be if you're alive, by the way, and gifts from Professor Oak, but I didn't need any of them to beat the game comfortably. The problem here is, why would I engage with capturing Pokemon if it doesn't help me beat the game? I already get a log of that Pokemon in my Pokédex when I check it, so I pretty much had like a little test for every Pokemon I captured. If it could survive a single hit from my strongest Pokemon at the time, I'd grab it and see if I can make it sling good. It doesn't help how long these battles are for no reason. You're walking around the overworld, then your movement's interrupted by a random person or a random Pokemon being encountered in the grass. Then there's transition effect, then another transition effect. Text box describes what you'll be facing, then any Pokemon that may be thrown out if you're fighting a trainer. And you say, go! Pokemon name insert here. Then the battle actually begins. The actual animations of the attacks are also bizarrely slow. You pick an attack, then your Pokemon starts doing the animation, At a certain part, it hits the opponent, usually the animation stops there, the opponent flashes a bit, small pause, and then their health bar drops. Not to mention the text box needs to fill out information every couple of seconds. It's just so unnecessarily slow. Have multiple elements work together. When you pick an attack, the animations start immediately, and as soon as it hits the opponent, their health drops while they're flashing. Battle speed should be an option for every turn-based RPG. A slower, more cinematic one, and a let's get going speed, please. This is also why I emulated, because I'm going to sit down and play Pokemon for a long period of time. I don't want to sit through all that every single battle. Sorry, I don't have the time for it. So yeah, long battles that are mostly hitting one button over and over again. What else do you do in this game? You kind of get sidetracked with two different other plot points that are more important than Professor Oak's request. You have these gyms where you go to fight all these enemies in the way to get to the gym leader, who if you defeat will give you a badge. These badges are kind of a sign of respect around the world. They let you control Pokemon at higher levels, since if you overlevel Pokemon, eventually they'll get cocky and stop listening to you, which is more than enough of a reason for me to actually engage with these areas. You need them to progress in the game, and you need them to actually play the game. These gym leaders don't really stand out as characters or as opponents. They're kind of easy to beat by just doing one move, like most of the game. As long as you have at least 2 backup Pokemon along with your main kill everything Pokemon, you'll breeze through all of them. Gyms range from tile puzzles to walking straight to the gym leader. If you played another RPG, they're kind of like focused dungeons, where while they're big and full of hazardous, strong enemies, if you know your way around it, you can get by most of them. Sometimes. Other times you just gotta kill everything in the way. Speaking of killing, there's this evil faction called Team Rocket that's killing all the Pokemon and selling them for money or some shit. I don't know, they're like villains, you beat them. They're really irrelevant compared to getting through the gyms and getting all the badges, when once you've collected all of them, it allows you to go on Victory Road, which is a kind of long dungeon, followed by the Elite Four, a series of 4 boss fights against the best in the world. And that's the game. There's more to the game than what I discussed here, like with mini-games and new content made for these remakes. But these are games from the 90s, made for a very young audience, for handhelds. So yeah, it wasn't like a second religious coming like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon fans if you believe this series is. If anything, these critiques come from a place of interest rather than trying to just spread slander of the Pokemon games. I just want to share my modern take on the games, while also respecting the fact these came out in the 90s. They're pretty fucking old. Which is why I also tried a modern Pokemon game. I actually didn't know what game I was going to try before a friend recommended Pokemon X, and I am so glad they did, because it has given me a chromosome for Pokemon. Get it? Because the name is like XY, like the chromosomes. Okay, moving on. While those games had their own appeal back then when it came out, it's kind of tapered off to a more modern perspective, whereas XY have their own charm to it, with their own systems inside. There's so much to get attached to. There's multiple modes dedicated to taking care of your Pokemon with actual effects to other aspects of the game. You get critical hits, you get extra dodges, you get special badges for love. It's the best thing they could have added. The whole point of the Pokemon series, in my eyes, is that there are these little monsters we can get, so these modes that are here to establish more of a tangible bond between the trainer and Pokemon are an enormous improvement and necessity in my eyes. Even if battles, while quicker and sometimes in hordes, are largely the same between this game and the previous one I played. I don't really mind they haven't changed that much compared to other game series where I want to see changes and iterations on the core systems. Like, the only major changes are the horde battles, the speed of battles being faster overall, and then you get experience for capturing Pokemon. I don't mind that they're pretty much exactly the same as they were before. It just needs some overall improvements to its pacing, and it got that, so that's good. Moving on. Other than adding the features that you care for the Pokemon, the game is the same at its core, with collecting the badges, Pokemon, and defeating the bad guys. I had a lot more fun getting Pokemon, maybe because I got 2 shinies when I started, but I had to stop collecting them to get done this video on time. I was thinking the story would be awful since my friends were clanning on the rivals when I started, but it was not bad or good. It was just okay, it was serviceable. Which to some people I mean it's the worst game because it doesn't like quote-unquote try, but it's not like the story is poorly written, it's just boring, I guess. There was one plot-related issue I want to bring up. The enemy team is obsessed with beauty on an artificial face value scale, but the leader is like completely different from that. They want to make a perfect world and only for their team apparently, so I guess it kind of correlates to their minions? It feels weak, but I digress. The writing for NPCs overall is significantly better. The towns are ecologically and architecturally distinct from each other, and people have their Pokemon out everywhere. It's so cute. I would love to go off describing all these little details because I feel like they add a lot to the game, because there's so much more than we have time for, but it makes the Pokemon fantasy come to life as far as it can in the 3DS in this game. I can't say what happened in the future Pokemon games because I haven't played them, but X and Y certainly bit, no, Metal Clawed, Magnitude, Water Shuriken, and returned its series into my heart. I now have Pokemon fever. I installed 2 Pokemon apps on my phone I have no idea what to do in or with. I decided to give Pokemon Yellow a shot, the game my friend said I shouldn't start with, just because I want to play more Pokemon. I'm watching competitive Pokemon, hell, I'm even buying the new game and I'm basically replacing any sort of special birthday event with my Pokemon Splatfest we're going to have. I wasn't expecting to actually come out of this liking the series. If anything, I simply point out the games are simple and fun for kids and move on to enjoying the Splatfest as I would with any other Splatfest I don't really care about the topic with, but I got Pokemon fever now. Now, I can easily say I like Pokemon. While I always enjoyed the designs of the humans, I actually like the games and everything inside them now, which feels super weird to say as a 23-year-old, and it felt weird to type in my script apparently. So yeah, there's my little research trip into Pokemon, which backfired, maybe, according to your perspective. Like, if you hate Pokemon, you probably hate me now, because I came at this probably having a very neutral opinion on Pokemon, but now I like it. I don't know. I like it now. That's all I have to say. The advertisement worked on me. I'm a Pokemon fan now, I guess. Okie dokie. Yeah, let's look forward to the November 11th through 13th. My birthday's on the 12th, and I will be streaming on that date probably, at least a little bit. Probably not too much as my other Splatfest videos, because I'll probably want to spend that time with my friends. But yeah, I'm actually going to like the Splatfest now, and I'm going to be on Team Fire, because I still want Fry to win. That's more important to me than actually picking a type starter, because I completely forgot to actually mention through this whole video. I just realized that I don't give a crap about the starter types. I just pick the cutest one or the one I like the most. The type of it doesn't really matter to me, because my favorite types tend to be Ghost and Fighting, or Fairy. So, yeah. Kind of a silly Splatfest. Anyways, I'll see y'all later. Pick Team Fry if you want to be a fly gal. Bye.